One. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here and welcome to another great interview of DojoLIVE, connecting experts like you. So, broadcasting live from Mexico City, myself, Carlos Ponce, and of course my fellow teammate, Nearsoftian, Tulio Siragusa. Hi, Tulio, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Good to be here.
I'm perfect. Fine. Thank you. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, Tulio, for being here. And today, we are going to have the presence here on DojoLIVE of Mr. Steve Milo. He is the CEO of Vtrips. Good afternoon, Steve, and thank you for being here with us. Steve is the founder and CEO of Vtrips, like I said, and well, of course, he's going to tell us all about it. But Vtrips is a vacation rental management and lodging reservation platform. So thank you, Steve, for being here with us today on DojoLIVE.
Thank you. Thank you, Carlos.
And it's a pleasure to have you here. So I would like to start off by asking Steve, could you tell us, first of all, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll move on to today's topic.
Sure. Well, my background is actually direct-to-consumer. I started off early on in the 90s with direct-to-consumer catalog and evolved into an e-commerce director at the time when e-commerce was still very new. And I've followed technology through the last 2 decades, taking a look at how to sell products to consumers over the internet. And as we progressed, of course, I decided at one point in time to buy a vacation rental, and with no intention of having a business other than I thought it would be fascinating to have a rental property in Florida and enjoy it and then rent it on my own. And I gradually got into the vacation rental business, so much so that I went into it full time. And so that's how ultimately that was the origin of Vtrips. Is really started as a hobby, started with my interest in technology and e-commerce, and it's progressed from there. So it's an interesting time and space, and I really enjoy technology and I enjoy e-commerce.
So it's a good way to combine both of your interests. All right, that's great. And can you talk to us a little bit about Vtrip and what is it, and so that our viewers can get acquainted?
Okay, well, Vtrips is really, we call it a platform, but really we are a vacation rental management company. We're on the lodging side, and we manage properties for owners in 19 locations throughout North America. And so what really separates us is that we're very technology driven, technology enabled. So what we've done is we've taken a business that's existed for decades, business of managing properties for owners in resort communities. These owners are typically investors, and they live outside that area. So they seek professional management to manage their properties. And but what's happened over the last 5 years is technology has really evolved. So we have enabled that technology to create a more efficient model for the owners and for ourselves, one that we've been able to scale into multiple markets throughout North America.
I see. Thank you so much, Steve. Now, more specifically about today's topic, those technology-enabled property management lodging platforms. Right? So, first of all, why you topic? And it's again, it's bridging the gap, by the way, between marketplaces and traditional vacation rentals. This particular topic.
Well, I think there's, we're seeing a lot of things kind of coming together at one time. And it started really probably 7, 8 years ago with Airbnb, who took this very niche space, this travel space called vacation rentals, and took it from what was traditionally a classified listing model site, which was being driven by companies like VRBO, HomeAway, and evolved it into a transactional site. So, Airbnb really changed the entire aspect. In some ways, created a level of demand that had never been previously realized. So I'm not sure that the consumers even knew that vacation rentals existed in several cases until Airbnb and HomeAway to a certain extent came into existence. And it's part of this whole evolving shared economy. So, private accommodations, transportation have been really revolutionized by technology. What's happened on the vacation rental side is Airbnb, HomeAway, and others have created all of this category awareness, all of this demand for a very, very interesting category, vacation rentals. We call it, some call it private accommodations, but whatever you want to call it, it is really the ability for a consumer to rent something that's quite different, something that's far more sophisticated than a hotel room. It's a accommodation usually with a kitchen, a living room, privacy, uniqueness in an area that may not have had hotel rooms in the past. And now all of a sudden the consumer has many choices for themselves, for their families. And this has really revolutionized leisure travel, even business travel to a certain extent, where consumers have this ability to see a category like a vacation rental now on platforms like Airbnb, and now it's spread into mainstream like Booking.com and Expedia. So everything starts with demand, right? Because we're on the lodging side, but it's the demand that's really created this tremendous category awareness. Now we're on the lodging side, right? So we manage these vacation rentals. We have this supply, and all of a sudden there's been all of this demand for the supply, which companies like us, Vtrips, have come in, and we've started to work with these OTAs like Airbnb, like HomeAway, like Booking.com, and we've taken this category and distributed it to those networks, and this has allowed consumers to have access to properties that they didn't normally know existed or not easily. So when we say technology enabled, we're talking about really the technology component of distribution. The other aspect of technology enabled is the operational side, which is equally fascinating. It's not quite as, maybe gets as many headlines as distribution to travel sites like Airbnb or HomeAway, but we're seeing a renaissance of smart home technology. Really, before our eyes, this is amazing what's happening with smart home technology. So smart home technology is starts with a lock that's remote access, right? So, but it's what enables that smart lock is a controller. And so the controller is normally driven by wireless, Wi-Fi. Once you have a controller, a smart mini computer in the property, you have the ability to also tie in other components. So the next thing is HVAC, so that you can control the temperature when the apartment or the property is no longer occupied or before the guest arrives. You can also control pool temperatures, hot tub temperatures, even access. But that also means that you can control things like having monitors for noise. And you can also control, which we're starting to do, that controller can be like an Echo or a Google Home device where it can be voice controlled, so that as the guest comes into the property, they have the ability to order concierge services like groceries and streaming videos. So when we talk about technology enabled, we talk about really two components. One, it's the distribution using technology to drive us into an entire new network of distribution sites. And it's also the technology that allows us to leverage all kinds of efficiencies on the operational side, which home automation is just one of many components that technology is enabling this category to happen before ours.
So you're talking about rather complex technology solutions, so to speak. How does this look in terms of a potential growth beyond the U.S., for example? Is there any kind of constraints or any kind of limitations? What do you oversee?
Well, I mean, the technology itself obviously is global. So the technology that's behind private accommodations, vacation rentals is a global technology. Smart home technology is global. Distribution is global. Taking databases that are cloud-based, revenue management, all of these things are global aspects. I think it's somewhat easier to apply them in North America due to the fact that we have one common language, one common currency. There are a lot of aspects of North America that make it easier to develop a platform that eventually can be applied to the rest of the world. But the technology itself is agnostic. It has no boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Steve. Tulio, so please, by all means, the mic's all yours.
Yeah, great. Thanks. So I'm trying to get a clear understanding of who's your actual customer. Is it the consumer direct, or is it the supply side of the house, the Airbnb, and so on and so forth? Who are you serving?
It's the guest. I mean, we're managing thousands of guests every year, and Airbnb is a partner. HomeAway is a partner. We advertise on those sites, but we advertise on many sites. So what happens is, like maybe a hotel chain, we advertise in a number of different channels. We advertise on Google. We advertise through Booking.com. We advertise on Airbnb. We're trying to allow the consumer to find our properties, and when they find their properties, we're providing them the access to book the property and to then access the property.
So how do you have a competitive advantage or an advantage versus a consumer going direct to an Airbnb or Booking.com, et cetera? What's the sort of unique value proposition that's of interest to the consumers that you're attracting?
Well, Airbnb is not a property management company. They're an intermediary. I mean, they represent property owners, and so we understand that consumers might use Airbnb, they might use Booking.com, they might use Expedia, but we actually manage the actual properties, right? So, and we have a website that typically has lower prices than the third-party websites that you're describing. So a consumer might choose to do business with us direct because they would get savings, better information, and access to our reservation team that can help provide them potentially a richer experience than just going online and booking. We do still have a reservation staff that is available 7 days a week. And for some of the higher end properties we manage, a customer dealing with a reservation staff is pretty critical in their decision-making process of booking a vacation for their family.
Great. So I know, for example, there's some limitation in markets like Santa Monica, California with Airbnb because of complex rental control laws and such, it's become impossible for property owners to actually use that platform. Is there a difference with Vtrips? Is there an advantage for those consumers who have those limitations?
Well, we have chosen to stay away from urban markets. We have concentrated in resort communities like the beaches and the mountains and ski destinations, which have faced very limited restrictions for rentals. So, you know, the interesting part of what's happened in the urban markets is you've all of a sudden had vacation rentals evolve in residential neighborhoods, and you have some of the friction that's occurred as a result of that. Resort communities, beaches, mountains, areas like that, you know, typically vacation rentals have always existed. So it's not like we have an issue of local governments who want to ban these because it's creating friction with the residents. There are some cases where there may be some limitations put in by the government, parking trash, noise ordinances, those type of things. But in terms of complete bans, that simply hasn't happened in these resort destinations. So resort destinations, you know, we're 50% of our inventory is in Florida on the beaches. We're in St. Augustine Beach, Panama City Beach, Daytona Beach, Fort Myers Beach, Siesta Key. And then outside of Florida, we're in areas like Maui, we're in Wailea, Kihei, we're in the mountains of Gatlinburg, which is where the Smoky Mountain National Park is, and that attracts 11 million visitors per year. And you know, that's really a major economic engine for East Tennessee. That's where Dollywood is as well. And then we also have some destinations in New Mexico, Santa Fe and Ruidoso, which is a ski and resort area. So we are spread out over a geographic footprint of North America, but we are not in urban areas, and we have not really faced major restrictions like we have seen in some of these urban destinations.
Thanks, Steve. Well, I have another question around the user experience in your platform. How are you staying sort of competitive and relevant to create stickiness with your user base?
Well, I mean, I think the main thing that we've done is we've chosen to work with the third-party companies like Airbnb, HomeAway, Booking.com, and smaller sites as well to bring customers in. So we look at them as an acquisition channel. Once they come to into our database, though, where we really excel is communicating to the consumer directly through email or text or even phone calls, you know, so that we own the customer after we acquire them. And we've done a very good job in terms of communicating with the customer, rebooking the customer, branding to the customer. So really, again, we're no different than hotel chains where they will, you know, work with third-party sites to bring the customer in. But afterwards, you know, we're going to certainly communicate to the customer the advantages of booking direct with us. We think we have a robust website with Vtrips where the consumer can find more information, more value to continue to book directly with us.
Just shifting gear a little bit, you're an expert in travel tech. What do you think overall the industry needs in terms of improving the customer experience and the impact that would have on loyalty? What's missing, in your opinion, overall that could be better?
Well, there's a lot missing. I mean, we're in a very immature industry in all aspects, really, which is exciting in some ways and frustrating in others. You know, the thing that shouldn't be overlooked is that consumers love this category. They love vacation rentals, just like consumers love shared transportation, Uber, Lyft. These are revolutionary, groundbreaking, you know, technology that is really shifting transportation. Private accommodations is shifting leisure travel, and consumers that experience it, particularly consumers that travel in groups of 3 or more, they love vacation rentals. the frustration, I think, really is one, there's a lack of standards for the quality of the properties. And I know Airbnb just announced several initiatives, plus Airbnb plus some luxury aspects, where they're going to try to create some standards. But, you know, the consumer can have very different experiences. And a lot of property managers now are using high resolution photos, but the high resolution photos, which may show a very beautiful property, may not necessarily match what the property is in terms of conditions. So standards is one of those things that I think is going to be required to take this category forward, so that consumers get a more consistent experience in what is clearly an unbranded category. Reviews are critical as well. And I think also ultimately what's going to really transfer the category is new inventory, purpose-built. And I think we're at the very, very beginning stages of where we will see inventory built specifically for private accommodation, specifically for vacation rentals. We are at the beginning stages of working with an international developer on 2 communities, one in Florida, one in Tennessee, that from the very beginning will be built for vacation rentals. It'll be built, designed, furnished, amenitized with vacation rentals in mind, with a guest in mind. And when you can do something where you build it from the beginning, you have the perfect combination of what the consumer wants. And I think that's the most exciting aspect of this industry. The only frustration is that takes time, but it will happen.
Yeah, great. I'm curious, you had mentioned some pretty fantastic vacation locations. How did you come up with those? Are you using some form of data-driven analytics? How do you determine where to go next?
We do. You know, we have used analytics to take a look at new markets we want to enter. And really, you know, there's a couple different companies that are out there that are expanding in the vacation rental industry. Still on the lodging side, it's relatively small. Wyndham is the largest in North America. They were very large in Europe, and they just recently sold their European division to Platinum Equity for $1.4 billion. There's some other companies in North America. Vacasa has gained a lot of headlines, raising well over $100 million in equity. Turnkey Vacation Rentals is another. You know, what everyone is doing is going out and finding different destinations. We've taken a little bit more focused approach. Instead of kind of shotgunning dots on the map, we've been focused more on markets where we think we can go in and we can consolidate and we can gain synergy as well as new development. So when we look at an opportunity, we first look at the size of the market, the demand, and the overall ability to consolidate and expand. So East Tennessee is a fascinating example because some people outside of the East Coast region really do not understand how big of an opportunity East Tennessee is. They would think that it's a relatively small opportunity. It is. Smoky Mountain National Park, with 11 million visitors, has by far the most tourists of any national park in North America. Within a 500-mile radius is 100 million people. You have Dollywood, and you have sites and attractions that can keep people occupied for an entire week. You have zip lines, you have go-karts, you have all the type of shopping you could ever want and desire, as well as even a ski mountain for skiing. So, you know, it's an amazing place, and it's an area where, with the population and the fact that it's a drive-in market, we just felt it was opportunistic to expand into. Maui is another example. You know, this is, we picked the island of Maui over some other islands in Hawaii because of the ability we felt to attract not just North American travelers, but even Asian travelers. We started off in South Maui with Wailea and Kihei. because it was a little easier to kind of bring in talent, employees. The west side of the island is a little harder to get to, but fantastic opportunities in terms of demand. And Hawaii's another market, just like East Tennessee, where it can be rented all year round. And there's so much activities for someone to do that even they could spend more than a week and still have items left on their checklist for Maui. So we're looking for markets where we have the ability to grow, to expand, to maximize occupancy, and to potentially get new development going, because we really think the new development is probably the biggest opportunity that private accommodation has.
In your technology platform, what are some of the things you've identified on the roadmap that's going to keep you ahead of the sort of demand in the marketplace, or create new opportunities for those consumers? Is there anything particular on the roadmap that's going to give you some kind of a differentiation beyond where it is today?
Well, we think building new inventory is that's going to be the big thing. So, right, I mean, we have companies that are out there buying property management companies, and we manage 2,000 rentals, and they're across the board, right? So we have a rating system. We rate properties from 1 to 5 stars, but for the most part, it's inventory that is retrofitted. In other words, it wasn't built to be a vacation rental. It was eventually turned into a vacation rental in many, many cases. So where I think the exciting part really is going to be is when you can actually build brand new inventory and amenitize it, and basically create for the consumer just an amazing experience. So just think about if, as a consumer, you can rent a vacation rental, or you can rent a vacation rental experience where you go in and the property is built just perfectly for you. It's furnished. It has a game room. It has a theater room. It has a kitchen with every aspect you could want. It has, power sources for your all your equipment and digital needs. And then it has a private pool, and it has jacuzzi tubs, and you have a private bathroom in every suite, in every bedroom. Just think about the power of that. And then it's surrounded by amenities that you and your family can use: an exercise room, a indoor pool that's heated, all of the things that you could want. And in terms of a cost, it's really not any more expensive than the current inventory. So the power of this industry is, as we see the demand continuing to grow and the category awareness grow, the power is going to be new inventory coming in, which is not really any different than what happened with hotels, right? So Conrad Hilton really had the vision of resort hotels, and but it took a while before they, Hilton and Marriott could start to build those resort hotels throughout the world. We see private accommodation similar. We see this inventory will have to be built. It's really we will start to see a wave of new inventory being built in areas that allow and favor vacation rentals or private accommodations, and we will see it throughout the world. And companies like us that are equipped to use technology to manage and to market it will be in the driver's seat, really, to take advantage of this opportunity.
So Steve, I've been in tech 29 years. When I think of platform, I think of something that could potentially be licensed. Is there a plan to potentially introduce a SaaS model for small property management companies that could leverage the power that you've built? Is that something you've thought about?
Well, we thought about licensing. I think there's going to be a lot of different models that are out there. There's companies like Evolve and a company called Vtrips that are moving along more of a franchise model. We really would prefer to kind of stick to the brand we have and to building standards where the branding has a consistency. Now, there may be franchise opportunities down the road for development opportunities, but that would be a more controlled environment. You kind of one at a time, rent by owner types using our brand.
Great, thank you. I have only one more question, then I'll pass it back to Carlos. And it's a
That's
text,
right.
It's a text. Actually, I got a text from my wife who said, "What about the Outer Banks? When are those properties going to be?" She said there's beautiful homes there. So when are those coming up on the Vtrips radar?
Well, you know, the Outer Banks is an area that I actually vacationed in as a youth. I think there's plenty of amazing companies in the Outer Banks, Twitty being one of the biggest and the best in the entire industry. And I think really you could look at Twitty as really paving the road for some purpose-built properties. I mean, I've been on the Twitty website recently. I think there's a 27-bedroom house with a wedding chapel that's beachfront. Talk about purpose-built. That is purpose-built. You know, the Outer Banks really, I think the whole industry could learn a lot by looking at what the Outer Banks has done. But that market is a little saturated, and we tend to avoid areas that may be a little saturated and may have a little bit too much competition to allow us to operate effectively.
Steve, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I was not sure. I got a little glitch right there. So before we go any further, well, first of all, we're approaching the final segment of today's interview, and I still have a couple of questions. But I would like to remind the audience that if you have any questions for Steve, you can just send them on Twitter at DojoLIVE. Simple as that. At DojoLIVE. Send them over. We'll. I mean, if you're watching now, you can do that now, or if you're watching at a later time, you can. We'll be more than happy to pass your questions along to Steve. Remember, it's at DojoLIVE. Simple as that. That's our. I don't have one more question. I don't think we're going to have room for more, but I think that DojoLIVE has done a great job on covering pretty much all the aspects that are more relevant topic. But still, Steve, you have a very impressive background. You come from e-commerce, from based on what you told me, you got into, you developed an interest in tech, and because of your interest in travel, so all these aspects. So when delving into the side, you're in the case of Vtrips, for example, what do you think what is the place for tools like chatbots or artificial things like that are kind of becoming increasingly more common in these in travel? Do you envision increasing participation of these Vtrips or in these kinds of tools? What is your take on this?
I'm sorry. What were the tools specifically?
Chatbots, for example, specifically chatbots and artificial intelligence.
Right. So voice. You know, we're at the very beginning of starting to experiment with voice. I think voice is going to revolutionize the vacation rental experience. What we are looking at is right now we have controllers in 75% of our properties. So smart controllers, and they drive the smart locks, the energy efficient controllers, even controllers for access and pull heat. So energy efficiency, right? So, you know, this is the beginning of the wave of the future of the smart home technology. They also provide access control, right? Smart home lock allows you to know when the service person arrives, when the cleaner arrives, when the guest arrives, and even controls their access accordingly. But the next wave of technology is really substituting that controller with something like Alexa or Amazon Echo, effectively an automated butler, where you, the guest, as you open the door, would be greeted by the butler, who would then ask if there were certain things that they could do for you, adjust temperature, turn on lights, even order groceries, or provide you with information about the area or travel groups, tour or trip. I mean, when we talk about experiences, we're talking about an ability to create almost a concierge-like experience for every traveler. And what's amazing about this is this could be done not just when the guest arrives, but even in advance, because we have all that information prior to the guest arrival. So the guest can be provided with the ability to order experience trips, excursions before they even arrive, even having groceries that they could order, so that when they arrive to their property, groceries are literally waiting for them right at the doorstep or right after they arrive. So as well as supplies, beach umbrellas, beach chairs. I mean, you name it, you can customize that experience. And this is, we're not talking, something that's well in the future. I mean, this is going to happen. Amazon is right in the midst of this, as you can imagine, having voice and having Prime and having delivery services in certain markets that can allow delivery within a few hours, same day. So we're looking at the ability to really revolutionize the entire guest experience, and the controller, the voice automation is a very significant component of it.
So we're going to keep an eye on voices. That would. We are approaching the final minutes. Actually, we're about to wrap up today's session, unfortunately. But I would like to ask you, Steve, if you have any final words for our audience, anything you want to tell them about Vtrips, please, you're more than welcome to do so now.
Well, I think the interesting part of technology that I also think consumers may be curious about is that we're going to start to see a lot of development by Google. And, Google has really started to revolutionize travel for air and hotel in the search results. And we're going to start to see vacation rentals really taken by Google to another level in terms of right in the search results. Google will allow the consumer to see sites like Vtrips and the pricing and the availability, as well as the ability for the amenities that the consumer wants. So, I think Google Home Automation is really going to help this very unbranded category surface to the top. And, I'd be, as a consumer, as much as consumers may love Airbnb or HomeAway, consumers definitely love Google. And we're going to see Google really drive category awareness, particularly in the North American markets.
Okay, thank you so much, Steve. Tulio, anything else for Steve?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Really appreciate that. That's an interesting future-looking view of what's happening. That certainly will change the travel industry for sure. We'll have to keep our eyes open for it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, folks, I think we have reached the... we're about to wrap up, and the only thing left for me to do is to send Steve a big thank you for having agreed to be here with us today. And of course, if you're watching this at a later time, please feel free to share this. And we're always on dojo.nearsoft.com. And before we go, just a quick announcement here about our upcoming interview for next week. We're going to have Brad, let's see. We're going to have Brad from One Meta, and we're going to be talking about using technology to find new clients. So that should be interesting. So here's our travel editions, and it's all on DojoLIVE. Go to dojo.nearself.com/travel edition, and it'll all be there. It's all about travel tech, ladies and gentlemen. And well, Steve, again, thank you for being with us today, and Vtrips for sure. And we'll see you soon at some of these events that we attend all over the country. Have you as a speaker? You're going to be speaking soon, right? At an event, right, Steve?
Yes, I'll be in Miami Beach at the Vacation Rental Manager Association Eastern show. So that'll be April 15th through the 17th. Okay,
cool. So maybe you want to you can mention that also as well on the website, DojoLIVE's website. Just send me the info and we'll do it. All right, folks. Thank you so much, and you have a wonderful rest of the day. And I'll see you next week on DojoLIVE, connecting experts like you. Goodbye.